All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Timeline. I am with my main man, Bill at Super Duper Flex. I am with the co-host with the most, Drew at dr underscore pra. Fellas, how are you guys doing?
Excited. Lions game tomorrow. Another primetime game, so that's fun. Hopefully they beat the Packers.
I think that's going to be a really fun game. I mean, sometimes these Thursday games are a little hit or miss, but I think you got two teams that are playing at least fun football. In Packers' case, I don't know if it's good football, but it's fun football. So it'll be good. How about you, Drew? How you doing, man?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you back, man. It's always fun when it's two of us, but it's I think the best when it's all three of us doing our thing. So, all right, we got the chit chat out of the way, the hellos. Why don't we get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of week three? Drew, hit us up with some good news.
I'll start with a small one before I do the main one here. Seeing a lot of highlights. Speaking of the Lions, how good was that ball fake from Jared Goff to get tackled and have the defender celebrate, thinking he got a big sack there? Like what
Yeah,
a what a quick pass there, and then yeah, he just stood there and took it. And I don't know, they get a penalty for it too, so ended up in I can't remember if they got some more positive yards out of it, but I had to watch that in slow motion a couple times to see him get rid of that ball that quick before he got hit.
Yeah, unfortunately, the defender there didn't have the luxury of watching it a couple times to see what actually happened, and he got
No,
dinged.
poor guy
it's
stepped
tough for
over him,
defenders. Yeah,
celebrated.
it's like
uh,
you can't hit the guy. You think you got him, and then it's just it's an unlevel playing field. I think.
I thought that was just I thought that was slick. So speaking about the game tomorrow night, right? Because then watching Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and Hard Knocks this year, all trying to guess each other's like, is it a play action or is it a real handoff? And seeing them critique each other's form. It was pretty slick by Goff there. But yeah, the real good that I had for this week, man, there was some really good. I know Herbert had a big game and huge completion percentage, but I guess kind of bigger beyond just this week is Tua really that good? When you look at what he did, 80 almost 89% completion rate this week. I don't know where the Broncos D fits into the bad part, but how bad they really were. But that's an incredible completion rate throughout 50 minutes of the game or however much he played. I forgot when the subs kind of came on there, but ridiculous to see, that much production that efficiently, and without Waddle too. So it was Tyreek, it was Mostert, it was A-Chain, which was I was listening to another podcast here, and it's crazy to hear. I think Mostert had a negative ADOT this game, but his average gain was double digits. But it's pretty incredible by Tua to be efficient and put that kind of game together and that kind of beating on the Broncos. But yeah, I guess I was curious what you guys think as far as where are you on Tua at this point for this season, whether you're thinking season long or even further than that. I mean, is he that good?
Well, I was listening to a podcast also today, and somebody had mentioned that, like, in 6-point touchdowns, like, if you just take all the games that he played a full game over the past 2 years, he's averaging 26.5 points per game, which is pretty elite,
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, he definitely fits what McDaniel wants to do, and so, I personally felt like people were probably overstating. I understood the concern on if he was going to retire or do things like that, but I always felt like the concussions, if he decided to continue to play were a little bit overblown. I mean, if he keeps getting them, obviously it's a concern. And I think it's probably going to be stuck in some people's brains for quite a while. But there's been so many players that have dealt with this and continued to have long careers after that. I mean, for every Jordan Reed, I feel like there's many more players that played a long career, with the concussions. So, I mean, as long as he's playing, I mean, you have to kind of lump him up in that top 6 QB, tier. I'm not sure if you should ever go too high just because, like, he's kind of the Joe Burrow level where he's not really going to win with, running or getting the extra points from rushing. So I think he has a ceiling, but I mean, he's so effing efficient, in this offense, and it's fun. I mean, obviously, like after they put a 70 burger on the scoreboard, you can kind of wax poetic, but we'll see, when he plays somebody that knows how to tackle.
Yeah. I
like
wonder,
the Bills.
My thing has always been, and I don't know if this is just me or if this is the general thought. I was never down on Tua because of talent. I've always been down on Tua because of injuries. Like the guy, we kind of saw this, obviously not to this extent, but was it week 3 last year where it was Miami, Baltimore, and they had that shootout where Miami, I think Miami came back at the end of the game. One of those teams came back at the end of the game to win it.
Huge comeback for Miami, yeah.
Right. And that was a shootout too. So I think, especially with this kind of incarnation of the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle didn't play in this game, but Jalen Waddle on the team, all of the old running backs from San Francisco, they got A-Chain involved in this one. So like I want to be higher on Tua, but I'm like, am I gonna finally hype him up and then week 7 or 8 and go, here's a shoulder injury, here's a knee injury, and we're talking about him missing, 5 to 6 weeks, because that's kind of like what Tua does. I mean, I'm hoping for the best for him. Obviously, I don't want anybody to get hurt, And if this offense can kind of keep clicking like they are, I mean, that's just going to be fun, whether you have pieces of that Miami offense or not. You're going to just enjoy watching them. So that was a good. And before we go to the bad, I don't know if you guys saw the tweet about Denver's defense. They gave up 17 week 1, 35 week 2, 70 week 3. And, so I retweeted it and said, didn't think I'd say it this early in the season, but start all your Bears for fantasy. And then I put a little winking gif at the end of it. But, 140 for the Bears apparently incoming. So just,
this is truly the movable object versus the resistible force.
Jeez. This game, yeah.
Who wins that battle between the defense of the Broncos and the offense of the Bears? Like, you got to think the offense wins, right?
Do they?
I mean, wouldn't you just tell Fields to just run? Like, I mean,
yeah.
All right, here you go. This is it. Just if you see an opening, run. If you don't see an opening, run.
And I don't know. I feel like there's some defenders on the Broncos that know their job's on the line this week, and there's no way that wants to have anything like that happen again. So my money is on the defense shutting them down and it being super ugly, like 6-3, 7-3.
Oh,
that would be awful.
That is so painful. And by the way, that matchup, a battle of 2 0-3 teams going after it. And we also have Vikings Panthers this week, which is also another battle of 2 0-3 teams. So we got some teams winning their first games in week 4 this week. Hey, since we're talking about it, let's throw this up there real quick from Puff Pass Kick. Would you flex Roshan in this game? I would.
I mean, it's definitely somebody that I would consider. I mean, obviously it depends on your other options, but
yeah.
I mean, he's definitely somebody that, I mean, actually him or Herbert are both people I'm considering playing.
Get your DJ Moore in there.
I'm less excited about that, but yeah.
I mean, at this point, it's a funny joke to say, the Bears are going to score 140, but I mean, they've given up 105 points in the last 2 weeks. I mean, would it shock you if DJ Moore slipped by a guy for a 68-yard touchdown? And, he might be 2 for 70 with a touchdown. And you're like, all right.
Or he could be 2 for 4.
He could.
I get what you're saying for sure.
As little faith as I have in the Bears offense, I have as little or maybe even less faith in the Broncos defense. So
Denver is favored by 3.5, and the over/under on the line is 46 right now. There's no way. There's going to be 46 points in that game.
Listen, Broncos might give up 28 on their own.
So that's 24.5 to 21. Basically, would be the implied totals.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be interesting to.
So speaking of bad,
let's go right into the bad.
My bad is T. Higgins. T. Higgins is. I heard this on another podcast and I looked it up. He had a decent week 2, but week 1 he had 8 targets, 0 catches, and then he had 2 catches for 21 yards this week on 8 targets. So getting a lot of targets, 28 targets in the 3 weeks, but he has 10 catches in those on 28. And I think a lot of that has to do with Burrow, just he's not able to probably get his timing down because he's not practicing. And, those are the harder passes to complete, in general. And when you don't have that touch, it's like having a bad short game, in golf. It's just if you don't practice that, you're going to be all over the place when when pressure's on. So unfortunately, I think until Burrow starts practicing and is a little healthier, I don't really see things improving too much unless they shorten Higgins' routes some, and so just a bad situation right now for actually a lot of the Bengals.
Yeah. Not what I was expecting for the Bengals. Obviously, I think Burrows is hampered by injury, but man, we kind of thought that they would be okay, even with the injury. Maybe not elite. Burrows is hurt a little bit, but I mean, I think I would be telling the people a major lie by stating that the Bengals offense has been okay. So,
it was rough to watch. It was good for them to get the win. Higgins had one bad drop that I saw Monday night, hit him right in the chest, middle of the field. But he had I don't know how you guys feel about, speaking of tough time to be a defender. He had an offensive pass interference called on him down the sideline where he made a pretty good catch that got taken away.
That was totally offensive pass interference. So he completely shoved the dude out of the way. So.
So are you trying to go after him if you're seeing this, or what are your thoughts there?
He's somebody I would consider going. I don't know if I'm going after him. I actually have 0 T. Higgins, which stuns me on umpteen teams. But I think maybe I have 1. I don't know. But he's somebody I would consider adding, but I think I'd be more likely to go after him on a team where I'm not contending.
Mm-hmm.
Just so I can kind of just weather it and not worry about the points. And Burrow might be like this all year, and they might just decide, okay, we're going to rely on our defense because their defense is really good. You know,
That's
maybe they
huge.
just tighten everything down and turn it into a little bit more of a shorter game and we'll do it that way. So I mean, I think this year could be rough for the offense. I mean, I think it looks like Chase is going to get his. Mixon's going to get touches. I don't know how efficient he'll be, but Higgins kind of just looks like until Burrow's right, he's going to struggle. So how long is that going to take? I mean, he said he re-strained it at the end of the last game, which was the game that he did well with Burrow.
Mhm.
So, I mean, Burrow was out for pretty much the whole preseason, right? So,
Yes.
it could be another 4 or 5 weeks before he gets right. So, I mean, I almost think I'm willing to wait and roll the dice and see if things are bad a couple weeks from now, and then maybe try to make a move for him as opposed to. But if you really like Higgins and believe in the situation, and you think that he's going to get re-signed there, otherwise, I think you might only have one more year of him. Is he in his 5th year this year, or is it next year?
Well, he
I
doesn't
think
get
it's
he doesn't
next
get a
year.
5th year because he was a second rounder.
Oh, that's right.
So I
this
think
is
this
his last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're
They have
either
a
gonna.
week 7.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they have a week 7 bye. So I think if you want to get him, you need to get him in the next couple weeks before Burrow gets a couple weeks of rest and maybe comes back a little sharper. But yeah, I don't see him back. I don't think they can afford him back there, right? I don't look at that stuff close enough, but
The salary cap is a myth.
To a point, but then you have to ask yourself how much money you want to spend on 3 players, and that's a legit question. And I mean, if somebody is outside looking in, it's him, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, kind of quick, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but Bill, you brought up an interesting point. I want to just spend a minute or two on it. If you're a rebuilding team, we all kind of said, yeah, maybe going after T. Higgins would be a good idea. What would be the price you would be good paying if you're going to end up with a top 3 pick? You're one of those bottom teams.
See, that's where I struggle. I'm not going to pay one of those top 3 picks for him.
No.
Right.
And I think that's what somebody's going to want.
Yep.
So I would probably be more apt to, if I had a later pick, along with that, maybe move that plus a player. Maybe if I had a mid plus Mostert or something that could help a contender, or Thielen, or somebody like that could help somebody for this season, or whoever. You just insert old player.
Yep.
I think I would be willing to do something like that. I'm not sure I want to move. If I'm a rebuilder, I definitely want one of those top 3-4 picks, of course. So
would you give up if you've got Cooper Kupp on your IR right now? Would you give him up for Higgins to a contender?
If I'm a rebuilder, absolutely.
Get him off.
I think they would require more though if I was selling him.
Think so?
Get Puka Nakua's backup off your team if you're rebuilding.
Kupp in a second, do it.
A top 3 set,
if it's one of
203 plus Kupp.
So.
I mean, that would be something I would consider if I was a rebuilder.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably right. Maybe I'm understating the value of Kupp, but I think there's a lot of unknown there, and just to be able to get a 30-year-old off of my roster would probably be worth taking a little bit of a hit value-wise.
I think still think he has name value. I mean, obviously, kind of the Puka Nacua experience has happened, but I don't think people are just so bought in that Puka Nacua was now the one and Cooper Kupp comes back and gets nothing. I don't think people generally believe that.
I'm so excited for that offense if Kupp comes back. I think that could be a really fun offense, with Puka, and then bye Van Jefferson, and put Tutu out on the other side. I mean, I think that's like dreamland for McVay and Stafford. You know,
Yeah.
that's just be like probably a lot of fun for those guys. So
A whole bunch of guys just running around causing havoc in different ways. Yeah, Sean McVay dreams about that.
I'm gonna look up some trades, see if there's anything for T. Higgins lately that looks interesting.
Okay.
All right. While
What you got for
you're-
ugly, Josh? Yeah.
Yeah, while you're doing that, we'll get into the ugly. I'll do a little foreshadowing here with one of the messages that good friend of the show, Puff Pass Kick, put. We were talking about the great games, the 0-3 teams battling it out. He said, don't forget about Kansas City versus the New York Jets on Sunday night. And man, you know, we bag on the schedule makers. Why do these Thursday night games stink? Why do these games? But like, think about the schedule makers when they made this. Oh, week 4, Sunday night football. We're gonna have Patrick Mahomes versus Aaron Rodgers. Oh man, it's gonna be Sunday night delight. And you know, never mind week 4. You know, we barely get 4 plays out of Aaron Rodgers before that dream is dashed. And my ugly is the guy that came in to replace Mr. Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson. Look, we talked about this earlier with, you know, when I kind of talked about Tua. I never thought it was a talent thing with him. It was more of a can he stay on the field thing. Zach Wilson is a talent thing, man. I mean, let me just read you this line. He played an entire professional football game, mind you. 18 for 36, 157 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And if you thought, well, you know, Zach Wilson, you know, he's mobile, he's good on his feet, 1 rush for 1 yard. That was Zach Wilson last week. And let me just throw some more numbers at you so you can embrace this suck. A QBR, a quarterback rating of 61.9 and a QBR of 17.6. I don't even know how a quarterback rating that low is humanly possible, but Zach Wilson did it. And I mean, not only is it ugly for him, but like, oh man, you know, we were hoping for big things from Garrett Wilson. That's ugly for him too. Oh, you know, Breece Hall, we know he's kind of still recovering from the injury a little bit, but we thought between him, Dalvin Cook, that running game would look nice. Now it's ugly for them too. Like, his ugliness is just seeping into all of the other Jets fantasy assets that you thought you were going to have. And it's just ugly. They signed Trevor Siemian. I picked up Trevor Siemian in a couple of leagues. So I'm like, I don't know how much longer, you know, there have been reports that the team is kind of like revolting now. Like, apparently Robert Saleh is a Zach Wilson apologist in the locker room. So I feel like it won't be now. Am I saying that Trevor Siemian is going to win a bunch of games for the Jets? Probably not, but I got to believe it's some kind of an upgrade once he kind of gets up to speed on the offense a little bit than what Zach Wilson has been putting out there. By the way, just as a point of reference here, Zach Wilson, his QBR is 33rd. His season-long QBR is 33rd. There are only 32 teams in the NFL.
Behind Andy Dalton.
And by the way, I don't know if you heard the stat about Mike White in that Dolphins game you were talking about earlier. He threw 2 passes and had more fantasy points than like 5 quarterbacks that started games. Well, actually 4 quarterbacks that started games and Jameis Winston, who played like 3/4 of the game or half of the game or something like that.
Sam Howell is one of them.
Here's the crazy part, though. Sam Howell got sacked 9 times. still had more passing yards than Zach Wilson. Like, put that into perspective. I mean, the Bills just utterly dominated the Commanders. Dominated. I mean, there was no aspect of that game where you thought the Commanders did better than the Bills. And he still had more passing yards than Zach Wilson. Think about that. Just, when you think you have it bad, at least Zach Wilson's not your quarterback. Sorry, Jets fans, but it's true.
So here's some Higgins trades in the last week. Higgins for Kamara. Higgins for Chubb and a first. So this was after Chubb got hurt.
Right.
Higgins and Jerome Ford for Stephon Diggs. Higgins and Jake Ferguson for Puka and Chig.
I like that.
Higgins and Kamara for London, a second, and Chubb.
Okay.
Higgins for JSN. Higgins for Madison.
All right, I gotta start inquiring about some T. Higgins out
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I feel like people are really kind of freaking out. And these trades were after his week 2 game, so which was good. He had 2 touchdowns, I think. So
Yeah, he had a really good game.
I mean, here's one. It's 12-team Superflex. Burrow, Higgins for JSN and 2 firsts. I mean, I think JSN and 2 firsts is for Burrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's at least that for Burrow. So you're getting a free Higgins. So those are all of them. I didn't skip any offers. Like that's except for the ones that involve like 6 players or 5 players on each side. Yeah. So that shows you that Higgins could be had if you like him and you're willing to take the risk of him being, in a maybe less ideal situation quarterback wise, but maybe more ideal target wise.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like the kind of trade logic you had earlier with if you're rebuilding a second and like an older player that can help a contender, like you said, you mentioned Mostert. We saw Kamara, who is still suspended. We saw Chubb getting thrown in on a couple of those deals where, Chubb's not playing this year, and we don't know what kind of the future holds for him. It actually, it was just a torn ACL, so it seems like it was a lot better than we thought. Where we thought it was going to be like a total knee reconstruction, which could have been the end of his career, to be honest. But yeah, I might have to go T. Higgins hunting.
Yeah,
especially teams where I know I'm rebuilding. So like if he stinks this year, cool. That helps. And he's a free agent. Somebody's gonna pay him a ton of money to be probably the one or he's kind of the 1A in Cincinnati, but Jamar Chase is so good that I think he's, more of a 2 in that situation. But I think somebody who doesn't have weapons is going to say, all right, like, here, come grab come grab this guy and let's bolster, I mean, who knows, maybe Houston says, hey, him and Nico Collins could be the tag team of the future for CJ Stroud, who's playing pretty well. But on that note, that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Appreciate you guys. Always love hearing kind of what you come to the table with, and it's always fun. And before we go any further, fellas, we got a question in the chat from These Nuts. My name is Jeff. That is a name. Rachaad White or James Conner rest of season. This is an easy one for me. So Drew, why don't you start us off? Rachaad White or James Conner rest of season?
I mean, the old guy's getting it done, isn't he?
That's my thought process. Like,
what do you have it answered?
Yeah, I mean, really, what are the weapons in Arizona? I mean, last week everybody was a weapon, but I mean, the first 2 games it's been James Conner and Zach Ertz has pretty much been the majority of the offense. So, yeah.
I mean, one has a chance of losing his job and the other one doesn't, right? Like, I mean, that's pretty much what it boils down to, because I think that the upside of Rachaad White's negligible compared to the risk. So I think that alone just makes it easier for me to say James Conner.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Rachaad White is starting by default for Tampa Bay, and James Conner is starting because he's getting it done in games. You know, I think that's a big difference because, like you said, you know, any running back on that team can have a great set of practices for a week and they could be starting the next. Like Rachaad White hasn't done anything in games to make you say, all right, this guy can't get taken out. This guy has to be our starter. So that's a good one. We got a little bit of time. Questions were light this week. So did you guys make any trades this week? Was there anything just burning a hole in your head that you wanted to talk about?
So I've been making a decent amount of trades, but I was reading up in one of the Discords I'm in, and somebody was talking about Mike Williams, and if you know, because a blown knee, like blowing out a knee is like basically a 1.5 year sentence, right? Because even if they come back, they're not back to who they were to start. You know, they're always a little hesitant, and there's the compensation injuries and things like that. So concern is like you almost don't get Mike Williams for next year either. And so I think we're all in the league together. Maybe that's the league. I traded him for Thielen and a fourth today. And I was like, well, at least I'm getting something out of Thielen this year. I mean, I don't necessarily need it, but I mean, Mike Williams, sadly, it's just one of those trades where it's like, what's he going to be at 30 years old after this? You know, and he's always had injuries anyway. And then, you know, you're going to sit around and hold him and hope for anything. Like, at least I know I can cut Thielen at the end of the season and not worry about it, you know? So it's like, almost like, okay, I get something out of him this year, and then we just cut him if need be. And
I saw that trade you made in Superflex Army too. And I mean, when I saw it, I was like, damn, that's a really good deal. Like,
I mean, it works out because he's like rebuilding, and it's like,
right.
I get it, because the value is going to be back next August, I'm sure, you know, like it'll look different, but
is it?
I mean, I think that somebody will be interested in him. It's like, you know, Godwin came back and he played, but he was never quite the same all of last year, even, you know,
right.
But, and that my concern is like Godwin's different because he, you know, his ADOT's so much shorter,
right?
Whereas like somebody who's launching down the field, that's a little bit more of a concern, and jumping up and landing on his back all the time. Like he never comes down, you know, in a normal position. No. He needs to start taking classes with Tua on how to land seriously.
Dude.
But I'll look up some trades I've made. I've made a decent amount of trades recently.
I feel like every time he jumps, he's like trying to figure out how he can put both of his feet through the turf. Like, it's just like, it's always awkward, and it feels like he lands with like way too much power. It's just like, wow, what are you doing here, man? While Bill's looking that up, Drew, did you make any deals this week?
I haven't gotten anything done. I had a couple offers come across. One of them for the Super League that we're in, 14-team PPR there, and getting offered Mike Evans. And my team is kind of in that it's probably a top 5 out of the 14, maybe a top 6, but maybe it's not fully there. So trying to see if there's anything I can do to kind of launch myself up there. But guy we talked about a few weeks ago. So this is the last offer that came through. I would get Mike Evans, and I would give up Jameson Williams.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that's about like what you have to give up. I mean, ultimately, it's how much is Evans going to help you, and how much you believe in Jameson not being a knucklehead.
Yeah, I declined it for now. I may send it back out there. The one that I'm really kind of I missed this because it was sent Sunday morning before the games and I got busy. I was offered Lamar Jackson for Justin Fields, Jameson Williams, and a second.
Say that again.
So 3 seconds.
I would get Lamar Jackson and I'd give up Fields, a second, and Jameson Williams.
Don't give them up this week. They're scoring 140. So
I mean, I like that.
I do. I was upset that I missed it before. I got caught up at work and I couldn't respond. So I may throw those back out there and see if I get either one of those to come back. But yeah, in that league as well, I've got Puka. That's the only league I got Puka in. I'm trying to figure out what to do with him. Do I hang on to him and keep rolling? If Cup comes back, does he stay as involved? Is he going to continue this magical run he's been on, or should I try to get out while the value's seemingly pretty high still?
Somebody in a podcast today was kind of talking about they're kind of, I think it was in Legendary Upside with Pat Crane and Davis Maddock, and they're talking about if you get a career of Robert Woods out of him, are you happy paying what you got to pay right now, or what you've already paid for him and just run with it? His value is not probably, unless he pulls a whole Travis Fulgham, which he already got cut by another team before he went to Philly and had those 3 or 4 weeks, and it was the middle of the season where Puka is a rookie, first game week 1, showing up. I mean, I think you just roll with it, just take the points that you get. And I mean, what are you going to get that's better?
I guess what I was thinking earlier is trying to decide, do I believe more in Puka or do I believe more in Jameson? If I could get Evans for either or, is there one that you would prefer to give up over the other to get Evans back?
Jameson.
I would give up Jameson.
Okay.
I mean, we've seen Puka do what we hope Jameson Williams can do.
I mean, the difference is if Jameson were to do that, his value would be so much stupid higher than
right.
But that's not going to happen in Detroit. He's not going to get that many targets. So I think I would get rid of. And this is a Detroit guy. I think I'm getting rid of Jameson before Puka. If I can do that at the same, make the same trade, it's my option.
Nice.
So there's one guy in a 14-team 14-team Superflex that I'm in that basically announced he's rebuilding and he wants to get rid of any aging players. And so, or any players. And I offered him a second and a third for Puka and a fourth after week 1, and he accepted that.
Nice.
Then the next week, that was September 14th. September 15th, I offered him Jameson and 3/4 for Stafford. Because I thought Stafford looked really good week 1, so I kind of was like, and so he took that. I mean, and I'll take the quarterback in a 14-team.
Yeah.
And then he had been trying to get rid of Mike Evans, and this is where I brought it up, actually. And so on Sunday, I traded him, Burks, and Tyler Huntley for Mike Evans and Zach Ertz.
Wow. Good for you.
So Burks, basically, I figure Burks for Evans. He gets the young player, just hope it hits, rather than having a 30-year-old wide receiver. And I get why he did that. Not, he's like, obviously, I'd rather a pick. I'm like, well, I'm not offering you a pick,
Take it or leave it.
So it was like, and he had been hoping to get something, and nobody else is making offers. So he's like, he's taking what he can get, essentially. and
Yeah,
you
which
can't
isn't
risk
bad for
it,
him.
and then Mike Evans gets hurt or something, and
Yeah.
then you lose all value. So I'm fine making a move for Mike Evans. I mean, he obviously looks like old Mike Evans, and you just take it while you can, and you're going to have those games where he scores 0, and you just got to
leaves in the first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of having him on your team, and you just have to accept that. But you're getting the other games also, and so. But on the other side, if I'm rebuilding, I'm trying to get him off of my team immediately, because you don't know when when Baker Mayfield turns into a pumpkin, and it's likely to happen probably soon. So. So yeah,
I kind of think Evans is quarterback proof, though.
I mean, it's starting to look that way, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
the more of a gunslinger, the better, right? I mean, he did well. He did all right with Fitz there, right? And Jameis kept him up. If any, it was Jameson. It was Jameis missing him by 10 yards when he was wide open.
Right, that was the problem. Yeah,
overthrowing him. All right, so I'm gonna circle back here. So. Tell me what you guys think about this. I'm going to send this. This is actually going back to K-Mac, who's been in the OG league with us as well. So if I were to get Lamar Jackson and Mike Evans from him, I'm trying to combine both Fields here. And if I give up Jameson and Puka, Fields in a second.
Say that again.
Jameson, Puka, Fields in a second for Lamar and Evans.
Yeah. So more or less, Jameson for Evans, because he put Jameson in both deals when he offered these to me. So in one of them, I'm substituting Puka in instead of Jameson. So would you give Fields Puka in a second for Lamar?
Fields, Puka, and Lamar?
Fields, Puka in a second. What I hope will be, what I hope will be a later second in a 14-team league for Lamar.
I mean, I probably would do that.
I mean, at this point, I'm trying to divest a little bit from Fields where I can.
So you're saying without Jameson?
No. I was just kind of splitting it into two parts, but the total would be Lamar Jackson and Mike Evans for Jameson Williams, Puka Nacua, Justin Fields, and the second.
Yeah, I would probably do that.
I feel like it consolidates a little talent for me. My other quarterbacks would be Stroud and Mac Jones at that point.
See a puff pass kick asked. Is Mike Evans Zach Wilson proof?
Hopefully we don't have to figure that out.
He said quarterback proof.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'd probably do that. I think that just getting Lamar and knowing that he's going to be the quarterback for the next 2-3 years, for sure, that makes me feel better. I mean, Jameson, you don't know if he's ever going to be anything. I mean, he might end up being Devontae Adams, or he might be, Tim Jones. So, like,
might be Mike Jones.
Or who? So, yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, you're giving up a decent amount of youth. And I mean, he's buying low on the quarterback, hoping he hits. And I mean, that might be like a huge hit for him, right? Because if Jameson hits and Fields comes back, that's a great trade for him. But you're getting the security and the scoring this year, for sure. Barring injury. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily know that Puka is going to score any less than Mike Evans, though, to be honest with you.
That's also fair.
Facts.
So, like, I don't necessarily know. I'd almost rather just try to make the trade without Mike Evans. And if I have to throw something in on top of Jameson, I would consider that like a pick, or something like that. Like a second, third, and fourth or something. I I'd be fine doing that. Or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I'm gonna send something back because K-Mac sent me a couple of those offers, back to back days. So he's definitely trying to get something done. So I'd like to make something work if I can.
I also had a pretty big trade last Thursday in a 12-team start 10, start 2 tight ends. So, only 8. It's a super flex, so it's basically you start 6 running backs and wide receivers. So,
Nice.
And it's PPR. I traded Waddle and Zay Flowers for Bijan. I'm pretty sure I overpaid. However, fuck it. Like, I'm happy. That's my only Bijan, and I'm happy to have him. So I probably paid up, and that's okay.
I mean, it depends on what you think of Flowers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have him in a few other teams, so I wasn't too worried about it. And I have a decent amount of depth, like I usually do. So it doesn't hurt quite as bad, but that's 2 pretty big hitters, I think. Like if Zay Flowers commands the amount of targets he's commanded so far, that he could end up being one I regret moving. But Bijan's Bijan. It gives me something to cheer about. When I see him make all these amazing plays, I don't get disgusted because I have 0 Bijan on any of my rosters. So at least I can say, yes, he's helping me in one league.
Yep. Same. I've only got him in one. I don't think I have Flowers in any.
Yeah, I have no Flowers, no Bijan.
So there's a league I'm in my FFPC league. Somebody put Davante Adams on the trade, and he's 0-3. And so would you move Anderson or Zay Flowers for Davante?
If you're contending, I would.
I mean, I'm definitely contending, yeah.
I would send Flowers before Addison personally, but that's just
what if you have Jefferson?
Yeah, then you probably send Addison.
I mean, would you do it, or do you just say, I'm going to hold these guys and not get greedy?
Adams is just being ridiculous right now with the amount of targets he's getting. And, I mean, the teams know that's where Garoppolo's going. You still can't do a damn thing about it. So, I mean, you have a rookie wide receiver. Either of those guys, I see the merit in believing in either one of them. Honestly, I didn't think Addison would either. Kind of playing second fiddle to Jefferson, but I think that's been a really good balance for Minnesota so far. And I've just always struggled with wide receivers in Baltimore in general because typically Andrews has been the target, and then the wide receiver one is already relegated. So, but yeah, if you keep one of those 2 guys, you've already got Jefferson. You get Adams. I mean, that sets you up so well and gives you such a good buffer. I would be fine doing that.
I lost Chubb in that league, so it's like I have McCaffrey also. So my team's like quite, solid, and Hurts and Tua. So like it's a pretty solid team, but I have a lot of like wide receivers like Amari and like Gabe Davis and guys I don't mind putting in my lineup. But it's not like Davante.
I mean, you get Davante and Jefferson. You're almost locked in for 50 points a week between those 2 guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're both averaging 25 points, and I was surprised to see Addison actually is averaging more than Zay Flowers by less than a point, but he is averaging more. I was trying to see what I could do outside of those guys, but I don't think I'm pretty sure he's going to want one of those. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
Also-
I don't hate it because you still have youth. I mean, Jefferson is still young. You have one of the rookies. I mean, Cooper is still going to be serviceable for another year or two, I would imagine.
yeah, I feel. How do you feel about Cleveland now? Because, like, I mean, I gotta say, Watson looked like Watson this week, and
He's getting better.
I don't know if it's just the lack of Chubb there that he gets to kind of be a little bit more dynamic. You know what I mean? Maybe that it was like way more structured with Chubb there because it's like hand the ball off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe he's now going, okay, I got to make things happen, and he's more comfortable in that role.
Almost puts him back in a more Houston-esque feel.
Yeah. I mean, he just looked like his passes look good. Everything just looked better to me. And I don't know. It's interesting. So I guess
think what hurts them the most for fantasy is their defense is too damn good.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. There's another trade I was thinking about making in a 16 team league. And I always struggle. Like I'm in two 16 team leagues and they're super flex. And so that there's just zero depth, you know, like, I mean, Jamal Williams is out. I'm struggling at running back. Like, it's just, that's how bad it is, you know? And so like I'm starting Rico Dowdle and
Nice.
it's just not ideal. Like I have a decent amount of wide receivers, but like I could offer like Bateman for like Ford, Jerome Ford, maybe. I mean, there's a guy that's kind of shopping Ford right now. I mean, Ford didn't look great. He didn't get, if he didn't score the touchdowns, like his stats would have looked horrendous. So like, but they went up against Tennessee, who's really good against the run. So like, those are things that kind of make me go, well, maybe buying Ford might make sense. I mean, Bateman just feels like he's a sunk cost at this point, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like, it's like, okay, well, is it because he's hurt? You know, like, but then he's always hurt. So it's like hard to like, I mean, he looks good. He looked good last year when he was healthy. And then, God damn it, same thing, you know, like gets hurt again.
Yeah. It's a different league. Yeah.
So you think you would do that?
Different. I would be fine doing that. Again, I mean, I already told you what I think about Baltimore receivers in general, and he's so far down on that totem pole at this point.
Yeah.
If you can get value for him, and I mean, because you don't know how Kareem Hunt's going to hold up. He's aged, so even if they split, 50-50ish or 45-45, and somebody else comes in for the other 10, or Watson takes the other 10, you got to think that they're going to be in enough close games where they'll be running, like we said. Their defense keeps them in it, so it's not like they have to commit to the pass coming out of halftime. So. And they let Hunt go in favor of keeping Ford around. So,
would you do that, Josh?
I didn't hear the original deal.
Oh, Bateman for Jerome Ford.
Yeah,
and a 16 team.
Yeah, okay. You could have told me it's 12 team. I'd probably still be okay with it. I mean,
so I don't play a lot of 16 team. This is my first year, and I took over an orphan in a 16 team league, and then I did a startup in a 16 team league. So, my bad, pass kick. I know it's Rico Suave Dowdle.
It looks nice out there.
So, I like just not knowing like how to go about it. Like, do you take less risks in a 16 teamer because you want that depth? You know what I mean? Like, or do you take more risks? Because like, I feel like I'm giving up years, right, of Bateman potentially, where Ford might be just this year, but, or do I just play it like I do normally, like in a 12-team league? Like, I just feel like depth is so much more important, right?
Yeah, I think you take more risk because there's probably less to be had Like, how many are you starting in that league?
Let's see here. I want to say it's 10.
All right, so it's not like a terrible number. That's pretty much what.
I mean, still, it's the top 160
Oh,
players.
it's start 11.
Okay,
176 players.
That's a
Yeah,
lot of
people
starters.
to-
Yeah.
so like,
So I
you
think
know,
you have to go for some risk there because it could
Yeah.
be one guy in that week that literally makes the difference for you there if they score 8 versus somebody that scores 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
I traded a second for Hunter Henry in that league. It's 2.0 PPR.
Nice.
Oh, that's pretty.
And I feel like, because this is the startup 16 teamer, I think people maybe aren't taking into account that a second rounder is, or at the earliest, the 205.
Right.
You know, so like I felt like that was a good ad because it gives me depth, and just any point scoring. And he's 28. It's not like I'm just giving up the pick for this year. So I felt like that was a good trade this week. So maybe I'm gonna do that.
And I do think it's worth looking at. I mean, I played in a 16 teamer for a few years with some industry guys, and I think sometimes it's not that people forget that, like the 201 in a 16 is the 17th. It's just that, like, that's all you're getting. Like, because people are just like, listen, this 201 is the best you're going to get for, XYZ player. And rebuilding teams are so kind of hungry for assets that they're just kind of like, all right, like, it's probably not a deal I would make in a 12-team league, but in this league, it's kind of what I'm going to get.
I feel like I'm more apt to spend my picks for players in 16 team.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
so I mean, could you get
surefire
pick or fourth
players? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna trade my third for somebody. Like, trade the third for like. Should I trade a third for? Oh shit! What's the guy's name from?
Don't know.
The running back for Indy right now, Zach Moss.
Oh, Zach Moss.
Do that.
Sure.
I mean, something like that.
There is a very real chance that he holds on to that job for the season, and he's doing great.
There's also a chance that, like, he gets run out of town by Trey Sermon, but at that point, you're talking about the 33rd pick at best.
Would you do it for Chubb?
Yeah. Like,
the third?
I'll take the gamble at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Especially since now it's, they're saying it's just an ACL. It's not like a total knee reconstruction. It's like, all right, yeah.
I mean, the likelihood that he comes back and is a running back 3 for you versus the guy that you would pick next year in the draft with that pick being a running back 3 for you is significantly better, no?
I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, even like, Puff Pass Kick, always correct us about, Rico Suave Dowdle. Like a third for him.
He's actually in my starting lineup right now.
Oh, okay. I must have been out for that part.
Yeah.
But like, even a guy like that who's like one Tony Pollard injury away from probably getting a lot of touches for the Cowboys. Kind of things like that where it's like, all right, you hear the name and you're not like, ooh, fantasy superstar. But in, the best case scenario, that's the 33rd pick in the draft. Yeah, okay, cool. Like, I'll take your Rico Battles. I mean, I made a trade in a sleeper league that Drew and I are in. I traded a third for Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, that was a good trade.
And a 14-teamer, mine's probably going to be a bottom 5 pick. Yeah, give me Jaylen Warren. I'll just take the 8, 9, 10 points in the flex when I need it. So probably better than with the 4.
Yeah, I guess how are you guys looking at trades at this point now that we're 3 weeks in? 17-week season. I tend to look at not only records. I'm looking at points scored. Are people really
Mhm.
Is a third place team that's 3-0 really deserving to be there? I know I've got a couple teams that have no business being undefeated right now, but the matchups have been great. So how are you guys looking at your trade options, and what are you trying to take advantage of at this point in the season where people feel like maybe they have, I don't know, do they feel like they have a little bit of a sample size and people are maybe getting a little hubris around I know what I've got versus there's still 13 weeks to play or 14 weeks before your championship's over.
I mean, I've been paying attention to my teams and seeing like my points scored and my record, and just trying to keep track of like what I'm nervous about. Like, okay, if shit doesn't go right next week, I'm gonna really be aggressive and get rid. Because you want to be that first team if you're gonna blow it up, or you got to look at the leagues and see if there's already 4 teams blowing it up. Because if that's the case, you're already way behind the 8 ball.
Mhm.
Now you're only battling 8 or 9 teams to get to the playoffs, and then who knows, right? So like sometimes you have to base it off of what your league mates are already doing. And like I have a league where there's 4 teams that are 0-3 out of the 12, and they're all just dumping. So it's like there's no point, even if I'm a middling team. Like let's make some moves, like cheap moves for point scoring guys this year, like Thielen and things like that, guys that can help you for a few weeks and see what it does, see what you can do. And, maybe you catch lightning in a bottle in weeks 14 and 15, and 16. So, but I'm definitely looking at those 0-3 teams regardless of points, because I want to try to be that guy that's going to make them make those offers now. So then they get some thinking about their team and going, I'm 0-3, I'm behind the 8 ball. I want to get rid of, I don't want, if I go 0-4, I'm in big trouble, and let me get rid of some of these guys now while I know I can. I don't want to risk these guys getting hurt, and then I'm totally effed, and so I'm definitely attacking those 0-3 teams. But I have a lot of teams that are kind of in the middle, so I know like that I'm not even sure. I'm still giving myself a week or two before I make serious decisions on what I do with those teams, which sucks. But I mean, I don't want to blow a team up before I have to, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's, if you've kind of during the off season, I know a lot of people say, oh, the off season kind of dies a little bit, but like even if you're not, making a bunch of trades and figuring out what every player in the draft is doing and what their comp is, like hopefully you've looked at your teams and you've kind of said, honestly, and heck, there's tool for the, I mean, Dynasty Daddy, has one where they'll tell you, are you a contender? Are you a fraud? They'll kind of tell you where you stand. But if you've looked at your team and kind of said, all right, this team is bad. If you're 3-0 and you're like, the 7th highest scoring team, you've just, had the least amount of points scored against you. Like, this ain't the time to start trading your first and, trying to get all these old guys, because, likelihood is you're coming back down to earth, and you don't want to be strapped with no assets. And now you have, a Mike Evans and a Raheem Mostert on that team that you're going to get, nowhere near value for. But, like Bill and I, we have, the OG team, and that team is not doing it this year. But I also don't think we're like all of a sudden like, all right, trade everybody. Like everybody's got to go. We're 0-3. I think we're 0-3 in that league. So you kind of have to be honest about like what your team is and what they're doing, so that you don't get yourself in a position where, I think Bill and I in OG League, we have the type of team that can come back from 0-3, make the playoffs, and be okay. But if we trade everybody, that's not going to happen. So, but you got to be honest about it, and then in the middle teams, you just got to pick a road. Are you tanking, or are you going for it? And then, like Bill said, if you're going for it, look at those bottom teams. Like, what do they got? do they got, I'll bring them up again. Raheem Mostert, Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, guys that we've kind of been talking about that are like, yeah, they're not sexy. Yeah, they're old, but they're probably going to help, teams win championships. So those kind of guys. But we've got a couple of questions at the end here. So we'll do
let's
these
do
and then we'll roll out from our boy Puff Pass Kick, 12-team Superflex. That is 0-3. Feels like I'm just a few players away from having a contending team. Can't seem to move Josh Jacobs. If all you could get was the 111 or 112, would you just hold? I'll go first. Obviously, after I know that was week 2, but 9 carries and -2 yards. That's going to sour people on Josh Jacobs a little bit. But I don't think I'm trading for the 111, 112 right now. I don't know about you guys. We've kind of seen Josh Jacobs get into these lulls and then bounce back. I think last year was the only year that he kind of went bell to bell and was just pretty good at every game.
Yeah, I thought he started out pretty slow last year, from what I recall, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it wasn't as slow as this year. It's tough. Like it probably depend on your team, but like if you feel like you're close, I would still give it a week or two. Because if you're 0-3, like one win's not going to change too much, like I give it a couple weeks and see what happens. And I think people are a little more hesitant to trade for running backs, like higher dollar running backs right now. I think they've kind of learned, like, why am I going to pay up when I can make do right now with Zach, whatever,
Moss.
I keep forgetting his fucking name, Zach Moss or Raheem Mostert, all these old guys that I didn't pay anything for, but at some point those guys might lose their job or get injured, and then that, like, when people are making a push for the playoffs, that's where Jacobs might command more. But if you feel like this is all you're going to get because your league better than us, like, maybe just being rid of him and getting some value. Because if he ends up this season like he has started it, good luck getting a first for him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would look at, the team that's offering you their first that you think is the 111, 112. How confident are you that they're really going to be a championship week team? And maybe they are 3-0, but they're third or fourth in points, and they just had a couple of guys hit that they didn't expect to hit the first couple of weeks, and that pick might actually improve for you a couple spots over the course of the season. So it's always murkier in the front part of the season here. And for me, when I see a few players away from contending in a 12 team,
that's a lot.
I'm ready to move on. I'm ready. If that's 3 or 4 players, I'm ready to pack it in right now and try to go for Caleb Williams if he comes out, or Drake May, or whoever you think, or if you want Marvin Harrison next year, try to get in that top 3 or 4 pick range where you can make a move for the guy you really want in the top end of the draft. So I'd be okay taking it.
Try to get a throw-in player too, though.
Yeah. That's absolutely what I was going to go with is, if you can get an additional anything to kind of hedge this move for you, take it.
Yeah, for sure. There's
what else we got here, Josh?
We got another one here from Kyle Miller, Terry McLaurin, I can talk, and Kyron Williams for Jalen Waddle. He says it's redraft PPR, by the way. I don't care either way. Give me Waddle. I'm good. I know he's got a little injury right now, but take that offense. Give me the pieces of that offense. I'm good with it.
I kind of like the other side. Yeah, I feel like I guess it depends on your team. Like if you're looking to condense assets, like if you're deep at running back, but Kyron has zero competition. He's getting every touch. So like I feel like his value is greater than the difference between McLaurin and Waddle. And like it's a whole different answer for Dynasty, but redraft redraft, I lean the Kyron side.
All right, Drew, tiebreaker.
I think I would as well. I think we should get more. So yeah, Eckler, Jacobs, Miles Sanders.
Then I can see making the trade to get Waddle. So
yeah, who are the wide receivers you've got while we're looking at it here?
Yeah,
I mean, once Eckler comes back, I mean, it's not like Sanders or Jacobs are lighting it up.
Which you were right, Bill. Last year, Jacobs started off in traditional PPR like 8 points, 9 points, 14 points in week 3, and then started hitting those 20+ weeks pretty consistently after that.
But it still wasn't bad. Like not like this year.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have a dud like week 2. But yeah, for this year, I mean, Waddle seems to be behind Tyreek still in the pecking order there. You know, what do you think McLaurin's going to do? I know Howell had an ugly week against the Bills defense, but that's not going to be every week.
I mean, is Howell even the quarterback?
But I want to roll that back for a second because you said it's not going to be every week, but he still has 4 games against Dallas, and I know they got exposed a little bit, and Philadelphia. I think the Giants are a halfway decent defense too, if you want to lump them in there. But I think the Giants the Cowboys and the Eagles are 2 of the more elite defenses in the league, and he's got 4 games against them. So, yeah, like, he's not going to, Sam Howell's not going to get sacked 9 times every week, but he's still got some tough defenses he's got to go up against in multiple games. So,
you can say the same for Waddle.
Yeah,
but look at these wide receivers though. You got Devonta Smith, Pittman, Judy, has Flowers and Addison. Nicely done. But again, it feels like a dynasty player in their one redraft league here.
I mean, that's me. I have
one redraft. I had to work real hard in SFP.
I'm not the redraft guy to answer this, but.
But I think with what you got here, if you're going to consolidate for better talent than Terry McLaurin or one of your starters, I would not be moving Devonta Smith. But I feel like maybe this is a 2-for-1 wide receiver move more. Like take a couple of these guys that maybe people are excited about, like Zay Flowers or Addison that's shown something early. Pittman's flashed early, depending on what you believe in him, and see what you can get there. Running backs are so much more fragile. I would be keeping the depth there, I think.
But I feel like in redraft, you can just get dudes off the waiver wire every week.
It's possible.
I mean,
yeah, I feel like your upgrade has to be more than Waddle.
Yeah, my son and I play in a league, and we're literally just grabbing the Gus Edwards and the.
I mean, are you feeling any better starting Devonta, Pittman, and Addison? Is it that different, your comfort with Devonta, Pittman, and Waddle?
Yes, because I believe in the offense a little bit more, and I believe in the player a little bit more.
I mean, okay. Yeah, I feel like I'd be comfortable starting those 3, and I don't feel like
if you had Devonta, McLaurin, Pittman.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable.
Well, I think that I would just be adding Kyron, right? Like that's where I feel like adding Kyron to the depth of my running back is worth starting Flowers or Addison instead of Waddle. Because I don't think McLaurin's a starter for this team, really, until he shows more consistency, right?
No, yeah, definitely not.
But if your team is like deep, like, I mean, I don't know how many like roster spots and starters you have, but like, I mean, if it's deep, then or if it's shallow, then I might be more willing to make the condensed move to Waddle.
Yeah, consolidate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good problem to have.
It's good to have different opinions too, because we don't know. You know, we have a we don't know who's right. You know what I mean? It's just and that's probably what you're dealing with too. The same thought process that Josh has versus what I have. So.
And Drew, what was your tiebreaker? I think I missed it.
My knee-jerk reaction is I would rather keep Terry and Kyren. Okay. But once I saw the wide receivers here, I mean, I could go either way, but I would typically rather, for me, I think I am more conservative in redraft, where I would rather know I have the depth at running back and not have to go and, depending on what your waiver system is, especially if you're a good team and you're going to be at the end of the waivers. Hopefully your league is doing fab at this point, but if it's not for some reason, or if you've blown your fab on something else, then I like having that extra running back that I know is a starter sitting in my stable there. And you've got so much depth at wide receiver. If somebody flakes out or gets injured, you can replace somebody with a very similar type player. It's a long season.
Yeah,
it is a long season. I think probably one of the main redrafts that the three of us play is Scott Fishbowl, and settings are a little bit different, so it doesn't transfer 1-to-1. But I actually went this year with like a very shallow running back room, which is not my normal strategy in Scott Fishbowl, but I am first in my division, so I guess it's worked so far. But call me in 3 weeks when half of my running backs are injured, and I'm trying to figure out why I didn't grab guys. But I did draft Puka Nacua in Scott Fishbowl though, so
that's good.
Good for you. Good for you.
I actually want to go back and see how many people did that, because I gotta believe that number is small.
Yeah, it probably was
relatively low. But
all right.
Yeah, I know, Kyle, we didn't really get to a solid answer for you here, but you got to hear some different ways of approaching it. But it's a season long, man. It's a long season, so have some fun with it. I think same thing we're looking at with Puff Pass Kick. Just the first offer doesn't necessarily mean it's the final offer. So I'd also be shopping around other places. So if you want to bump up a little bit and see if you can consolidate into if it's not Waddle, who's another guy that would maybe be, a half step above Waddle for you that he might be able to target with some of these players and make maybe a more substantial difference in the starting lineup each week. If you think about wide receivers,
it's tough because there's like a teardrop, right? Like if it's it's like goes Amon-Ra kind of, and then like a drop. Yeah, I don't know.
Is Ayuk any better for you guys, or you still prefer Waddle? Or is he in the same tier?
I think they're in the same boat.
Same place. So, yeah, this, I think it does get down to maybe the nitty gritty of, do you know your league mates well enough that, is somebody a Commanders fan that's going to give you a little bit more for McLaurin, or somebody who's, maybe they're a Vikings fan that wants to get rid of Amon-Ra for some reason. So have some fun with it. Hopefully you get something good that works out for you, though.
Yeah, good luck.
Yes, sir.
All right. We all set?
I think that's the last question we had, right?
Yes, it is. I think my camera's messed up. Sorry.
Yeah, there's definitely a delay there.
All right, you guys.
I guess I'm editing this portion out.
Do not
leave it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us tonight. It was fun to have some back and forth. Love getting some of the updates of what your settings are, so we can give hopefully some better responses and ideas along the way. But if you get a chance, rate and review us on whatever platform you use. We'll continue to do this throughout the season here, and I think we're having a lot of fun with this. I know we've stretched past the hour that we committed to initially, so we've still got some work to do on our end. But thank you all for hanging out with us. If you hear this on podcast later, thanks for taking some time. Hopefully we made your commute go a little bit faster, or whatever mindless tasks you got going on go a little bit faster here. But with that, we will see you next week, and we are out of here.
late.